Welcome to the new WCEG network on the WCEG Talk Radio. We are the worldwide community empowerment group where we speak live into the community. I'm Dr. Babs, your show host for this evening's segment, Holistic Perspective. We are going to have a wonderful hour of empowerment, encouragement, and education as we discuss self-care, its relevance to our overall well-being in celebration of the Self-Care Awareness Month. We're live on all your online streams, YouTube, Facebook. So please tag your friends, share with your neighbors. Sharing is caring, and follow us on the WCEG network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You need to stay updated, so please make sure you follow. Thanks for your continued support. Before we dive right in, two quick disclaimers. The information shared on this talk radio is not intended for medical advice, but instead for educational information to support you on your holistic wellness journey. The views and opinions expressed by the host and guest do not necessarily reflect those of the WCEG network and management. So anyone ready for a wonderful evening of empowerment? Well, let's get started. I like to start with an inspirational quote. And this one is by Herman Melville. And it says, "We cannot live only for ourselves. 1,000 fiber connects us to our fellow man." So let's pause on that. 1,000 fiber connects us to our fellow men. So we are not living for ourselves. So at this note, I really want to just acknowledge the joy and privilege that I have to be part of this WCEG community. We are uplifting each other, we're empowering each other. So let's come right in and have a great time. So welcome again. I'm Dr. Babs, your host for this wonderful session on self-care. So my goal this evening, we're going to have a conversation about the following. What is self-care? Why is it relevant? And we're going to talk about some practical tips on how to get it started, because this could be challenging. I do welcome your engagement, your questions. You know, that is how it sticks. When we engage and converse together, we get stronger and healthier together. So I welcome all your conversations. So let's get started on why it's so important. Why is it important? You know, the WHO, which is the World Health Organization, mentions that the definition of self-care is the ability of individuals and families and communities to promote health, prevent disease, maintain health, and cope with illness and disability with or without support of health workers. So it's so essential. Understanding self-care makes us understand that it's the gateway to a creativity, great way to peace and self-perseverance. You can never fill from an empty cup. We've heard this time and time and time again. So why is it so challenging? Why is it so difficult for us to prioritize our health? Because we're in a busy world. We all have so many things we want to do. We feel like 24 hours is not enough time in the day. So we're busy. We got to take care of others and put ourselves last. And for good reasons, you know, we want to care for others. But, you know, I had to take a step back about 13 years ago when I went through just lack of self-care. I'm a family physician, now a mother of 3, but at the time I was a mother of 2. Just gave birth to my newborn baby, less than a week old, and I had a toddler in the house. But again, type A, running around, taking care of everybody else but myself. Had the worst headache ever. It just wouldn't get better. And I couldn't fathom what was going on. Initially, I thought, well, I'm just sleep deprived. It might be that, you know, baby's waking me up at night. But this nagging headache just got worse. It was the worst headache ever. I never had headaches like this. But also grateful that after 4 days of that kind of headache, I figured, might be my blood pressure. Even though I never had blood pressure problems, I thank God that he actually led me to think that it might be something else other than sleep deprivation. I checked, my blood pressure was 220 over 120. Oh my goodness, I was alarmed. It's like, wow, caring for everybody else but myself, look at what it has led to. So I immediately called my husband, come take your babies. I'm going straight to the emergency room. In the emergency room, they ran all sorts of tests. I recall that day as if it was yesterday. And would you believe that I was still anxious, even in the emergency room? I was trying to figure out, if insurance was going to cover for all the tests that they were running. I was still under a lot of pressure, thinking about bills instead of thinking about my health. And I recall that the doctor sat by my bedside and he said, all your results are negative. Everything is negative. Whatever is stressing you out, you need to unstress. And that began my journey of self-care. I realized that I have to love myself. I have to care for myself. As challenging as it might be, I needed to fill my own cup first for me to be available for people that I love. And so I started that journey, and day by day, it's gotten better. Now there are periods in our lives where we are busy and we don't have time to care for ourselves. But if you've made that habit consistently, you're able to keep it in the long run. Now, I was started on blood pressure medicine because I didn't want to die of a stroke. I was on it for about 3 months, but I gradually learned to unstress, to using the different methods which we're going to talk about today. I went on long walks. I learned to calm myself, things that I cannot control. God help me, let it go, live in the hands of God. And gradually I was able to get off the 3 blood pressure medicines. Initially, I was so stressed about the blood pressure because I would check it every 2 seconds and it was still high and I was so alarmed. But gradually I was able to get off the blood pressure medicines, learning to practice self-care. So among that, I mean, there are other reasons, not just medical health, right? It's also anxiety. When we don't take time out for ourselves, we're anxious, right? We're worried. We're not practicing mindfulness. Where they say that if you're constantly in the past, you're depressed. If you're constantly in the future, you're having anxiety. But if you're in the present, if you're in the moment, enjoying every second of it, then you actually are in a better place. You're enjoying life as it is. So that's another reason why it's important, not just the chronic diseases, to avoid things like hypertension and inflammation in the body. Talked about mental state of health. That's also important. Was about just being able to sleep properly. If we don't care for ourselves, we're overwhelmed. We're doing everything for everybody, pulled left, right, center. You're so overwhelmed, you can't have a good night rest. And sleep is so essential for our bodies. We need to be able to sleep. There's several other reasons. When we don't care for ourselves, are we going to be able to take care of others around us? God forbid we break down and the loved ones that we're taking so much time to care for them, we don't have enough time to, because we're not well ourselves, we can't adequately care for them. So that is definitely challenging. So we need to figure out, how can we make this possible? You know, research shows that many people misunderstand what effective self-care is and how best to benefit from it. A lot of people think, this is an indulgence, this is luxury. The people that practice self-care have to have all the time in the world or have all the money in the world. But it's amazing to note that even the least expensive things in the world is really all that we need for self-care. It doesn't have to be extravagant. It doesn't have to be expensive. The least expensive things is what we can use to practice, like just taking deep breaths, taking a walk. And that was what I did for many weeks, just taking a walk. So we need to be able to define what self-care means to us. It doesn't have to be expensive. Research shows that 35% of people feel that unless I have money, there's just no way, and there's no time. But we need to prioritize ourselves enough to be creative, to figure out what works for you. Everybody's different. Self-care to me might be different for what self-care means to you. So let's talk about some of these habits that will cultivate over a period of time that will enable us to promote our self-care and our self-help. Now, you know that we're creatures of habit, right? So whatever you do over a continuous basis becomes a lifestyle. It's not going to be easy initially because we're all go-getters. We want to be everywhere. We don't want to slow down, but we have to figure out the best way. What are the best practices? Now that we've established why it's important for self-care, right? So that we can be healthy and strong, so that we can care for others. We've also established that it causes a lot of medical problems, high blood pressure, like in my case. It can cause a lot of inflammatory issues. When you don't take care of yourself, you're constantly stressed. Can you imagine constantly being in a flight or flight, freeze or flight mode? You're constantly in the sympathetic mode. So you're always hyper. You never relax and calm down. So we need to aim for more parasympathetic. And what I mean by parasympathetic is the autonomic nervous system. We have the sympathetic, where if a lion comes in here, very quickly, your body knows what to do. The cortisol level is raised. You get blood pumping in your heart rate, blood in your muscles. You're ready to run, or you're ready to fight. But then the parasympathetic is when you're calm and you're chilled. That's what self-care does for us. Let's remember that when we're parasympathetic, we need to be in that state constantly, because that's what keeps us calm. That's what helps us heal. There's a lot of restoration that takes place in the parasympathetic mode. We digest food better. So that's the state we need to be. Now, don't get me wrong. Yes, there are times and periods in our life that we need to be hyper, because it gets us ready for, different things, interview, jobs, family events, but we're not supposed to stay in that state continuously. And when we don't prioritize self-care, we're constantly in a fight or flight mode. So back to those things that we need to be able to do, prioritize our health so that we can stay in that restful mode. So how do we do it? How can we accomplish it? That's the question of the hour. I definitely would like to hear your views on how you right now prioritize. And if you're not, what are those challenges that you face that keeps you from prioritizing your self-care? Is it a spouse? Is it an ill parent? Is it a child? Is it your work? What are those things that are keeping you from prioritizing your health? If you can just share with us, sharing is caring. We learn up from each other. So yeah, drop it in the chat. Let's hear, what are those things that you do that helps? Now, a few things that I do that I know has helped is making it a priority. If you don't write it down, it's not going to happen. And this is where I talk about SMART goals. SMART goals is just being smart. If you don't put it down, it's not going to happen. If it's not in your calendar, can anyone agree with me? If it's not in your calendar, it's not going to happen. So SMART goals, and what I mean by SMART goals, the S stands for specific. So what exactly are you going to do? For me, I have a specific day of the week. So on the weekends, Friday, Saturday, I carve out time. Everybody knows my time, that I'm just going to go into my own quiet place. I'm just going to journal. I do a lot of journaling. That helps for me to calm myself down. That helps for me to be reflective. That helps for me to be in that restful mode. So first of all, be very specific what it is. What exactly, how are you going to do it? There are different systems. There are different methods. You might journal. You might decide to go for a walk. You might decide to go for a massage, maybe once a month. So you have to be very clear and write it down, because if you don't write it down, life is going to take that time. They say if you don't fill your schedule with stuff, with work to do, somebody else will fill it up for you. So you be in control of your time. You fill up your schedule, because you don't want anyone filling it up for you. So S is specific. Now let's go to the M, measurable. Measurable, they say if you don't measure it, you can't manage it. So unless you're able to measure, how do you know that it's working? For me, it took 3 months for me to get off the 3 blood pressure medicines. And how was I able to measure that? The walking that I selected as my self-care, how was I able to measure it? I was gradually able to get off my blood pressure medicine. I was no longer stressed. I was no longer in that flight or flight mode. I was calm. I was a calmer person. Even people around me felt it. They felt, oh, this type A individual has slowed down her horses. So yes, you got to be measurable. All right. A, attainable. What self-care do you want to practice? Again, remember, we're creatures of habits, right? So for us to be able to continuously do something, it has to be something that is within our reach. You don't want to say, let's say, for instance, you have to be at work 9 to 5, and then that's when you're going to schedule your massage. Well, your boss is expecting you to be at work. So schedule your self-care routine at the time when you're available. So sit down, look at your schedule. So attainable. For me, what I did was I had a family member of the church that kept my newborn and gave me the opportunity to go walking every day. I was able to walk. I was able to take time for myself, care for myself so that I'm able to care enough for others. So it has to be attainable. So as you reflect this evening, take a look, just reflect on your life. Where do you have time? Or create the time. You might say you don't have time, but create the time. We all do have time. Whatever we focus on, whatever we find as important, we focus on. So yes, I don't want to hear that we don't have time. We just have to be creative, but make sure it's attainable. Now, so that is, we've talked about the specific, measurable, attainable, that are relevant. Is it relevant? Right? So take a minute and think about it. Is it relevant? This self-care that we've just explained is so important for our well-being because we don't want to have chronic diseases. It's stated that for every 6 people that you see out of 10 will have chronic diseases. And unfortunately, quite a bit, over 60% or somewhere between 40 and 60 will have 2 or more chronic diseases. And all of these come from stress, inflammation, lack of self-care. So we need to know the relevance. What is your why? Why are you taking time out for self-care? So we're not just throwing words around. We know why we're doing it. I want to be around for my family. You want to be around for your loved ones. So I knew why I needed to practice self-care. And that was because I wanted to get off the blood pressure medicines. I didn't want at a very young age to be on blood pressure. Even at an older age, I didn't want that either. So I definitely knew my why. So what is the relevance? That's the R part of the SMART. And then we have T, which is the time bound. Time bound. What is the period? So maybe this month I'm going to have a massage, this day of the week, this time of the week, or maybe I'm going to go for daily walk 5 days, 30 minutes. The recommendation by the American Heart Association is 30 minutes, 5 days a week. And that is such great time to be able to practice self-care for yourself. So that's the SMART goals. That's the first thing you want to establish when you're ready, which should be now, to practice self-care. Make it SMART. Make it very clear. Write it down so that you make it a habit. Another step that I would say that is so important, because it's not something we're used to doing until it becomes a lifestyle, is attach it to things that you already do. So, for instance, recently I started meditating, and even though I do pray, I'm a lover of God. I enjoy my time with God. There are times where I run out if I'm busy and I'm running late to work if I don't wake up early enough. But what I find is that I have to brush my teeth, right? It's a lifestyle already for me. So I pair that habit that I have with a new self-care routine. And what do I do during that period? I meditate. I do affirmation. Those are systems of routines for self-care. So that's number 2. You can actually attach what it is you want to do. Find chunks of time that you can actually practice that and do it with something that you already do. It makes it easier to remember. I have patients that tell me, oh, I never remember to take my blood pressure medicine. Remember, taking your medicine is self-care, self-love. You love yourself. You love yourself enough to care for your health, for your well-being. Now, how can we get rid of that habit of not taking your medicine? Why not put it next to you when you're brushing your teeth in the bathroom? Where your cup of coffee, whatever it is, so that it triggers a memory so that you can do it. So we talked about SMART goals. We talked about pairing whatever routine that you want to start, pair it with something that you're already doing. So it becomes a constant habit. It becomes a lifestyle. Now, the next question is that I get asked all the time, self-care. Does it mean that I have to be with people all the time? Is that defined as self-care? As I mentioned, self-care could be whatever it is to you. There are times where your self-care might be interaction. Maybe you've been isolated at work and you want to go out and have a good time. Yeah, it could be that. Whatever makes you feel refreshed and re-energized, that is self-care. Not where you're just pouring and pouring and pouring a whole lot. I listened recently to one of my mentors that said, you know, family, yes, could be a great source of joy, but again, some family members, depending on what's going on, I usually say we are drama queens, human beings generally, and that's why God is up there in heaven and we're all down here. So some families can have their own stress, but if you know you want to spend quality time with your family, but then there are maybe one or two people that would draw out the energy in you and bring out all sorts of stresses, then fill yourself before you go to those gatherings. Practice those your self-care, because when you practice your self-care, remember what it does for you. It gets you into the parasympathetic mode. It gets you comfortable, it gets you ready, it gets you prepared and re-energized for whatever comes your way. So that's another thing that you can do. And one thing that we need to remember is that you don't want to make a habit of, okay, yes, which I used to do, I'm guilty of that, and I've since changed that you don't want to start 1 month and skip 3 months. You want to continuously practice self-care. You know why? Because there are periods in our lives that's just going to be tough, and we might not be able to take that long walk. We might not be able to have that massage or the pedicure or the manicure or whatever it is that we do. But the good news is that we filled our tank enough that when those periods come, we don't fall off completely. So it's an equilibrium that we are constantly doing this and we're not falling off the wagon, because there are periods where we cannot meet all the expectations of our self-care appointments. But then we can revert back to those little things that you don't need so much time. So like the meditation, like the deep breathing. And I want to spend some time in talking about how we can breathe as a path of self-care. So those are some tips and those are some ideas that we can embark upon. Now, let me take a few minutes and just talk about breathing, because that's not something that we're used to doing. We're all always on the go, go, go. So we're not breathing as such. So I want to see if we can just talk about how we can make breathing a priority. Now, one thing that is so important that I've noticed is that we don't breathe. And why do I say that? This is something I realized. We spend a lot of time on the go, but how many times do we actually breathe from our abdomen all the way? Deep breathing. It's called diaphragmatic breathing. That's another practice of self-care. So if you want to join me, that would be great. Let's do some breathing here. I want us to practice breathing because this is cheap. Remember I said self-care doesn't have to be expensive. So this is called box breathing. Box breathing is one of those self-care routines that I've been doing that has really made a whole lot of difference, especially when I'm nervous and I'm anxious and I'm beginning to freak out and I want to get all worked up. Then I take a deep breath in. And so what box breathing is, it's like a box, right? So you breathe in for 4, and I'm going to demonstrate it. And then you hold, and then you exhale, and then you hold. So I want us to practice this. If you're watching, I'd like for you to join, whether you're watching live or a replay, please practice it and use it, incorporate it as one of your self-care routine. So when I say inhale, just follow me, follow along. So we're going to breathe for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, hold. And exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you exhale for 4. You inhale for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you exhale for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you hold for 4. So you can do that as many times as you like. The recommendation is anywhere from 5 to 10 times. It really does help to calm you down. Try and incorporate that routine into your lifestyle over a period. Anytime you feel stressed, you feel anxious, that is a self-care routine. Now, journaling is also one of those least expensive ways of self-care. Whenever we journal, especially before we go to bed, it really helps to take down all the headaches and all the worries and anxiety. It helps to calm us down. So just having a little book, it doesn't have to be any fancy book. Just have the book down, write out your thoughts. The recommendation is not to do it too close to your bedtime because you don't want to be thinking about your to-do list. So you want to write down the things that you want to do for the next day. It's a form of self-care. You're reflective, and also there you can do your gratitude. It's also recommended that gratitude in the morning, which is part of your prayer. If you're a Christian and you want to pray, or if you just wanted to, just give your gratitude, grateful for what the day has brought and where, your intentions. You want to set your intentions for the day. So there's so many examples of self-care. This month of September is self-care month. It's so appropriate. It's self-care month. It's also self-care awareness month. Many people, many, I see it in my life, in my family's life, my patients, where we're always running and caring for everybody else but ourselves. So learning to engage in all these practices definitely help. It helps to keep us in check. It helps to keep us in balance. Now, I want to share a testimony actually of a patient that started practicing some of these routines. And in their case, they didn't have chronic disease. They just had a lot of anxiety. And I'm sure you've heard where, when somebody has anxiety, that they would tell them to breathe into a bag, right? And when you do that, you're actually breathing from your diaphragm. So you're letting all the air out and you're calming yourself. When you do that, you're stimulating your parasympathetic mode. So this particular patient had years of anxiety, many years of anxiety, had been on multiple medications. And then I actually really got to the root of what was going on. And I practice lifestyle medicine. Lifestyle medicine is getting to the root cause of problems instead of focusing on the symptoms. The symptoms come from somewhere. So when we took a deeper dive, we realized that it was just all the thoughts of all the needs that they needed to meet, the family needs, the home needs, the children's need. And so they were constantly worked up, constantly anxious. So the anxiety was not in isolation. It was rooted from other things. And so we started working together with the box breathing. There are different types of breathing, but box breathing is the easiest one. There's a breathing called 4-7-8. So we started working on those. And she did tremendously well, got off her got off her anxiety medicine and was really, really doing well. So it was really great to just have her realize the benefits of box breathing. Now, she's not on medicine. She cannot have a day without practicing box breathing. Anytime the stress is coming on, they constantly are breathing. And that's just one example. I also have another example of self-care. This person actually had to sit down and carve out time. Busy taking care of an ill parent and just no time. And we always hear that if you don't take time for your wellness, you take time for your illness. And we don't want illness here. We want to be well. It's easier to prevent a disease than to treat the disease. So that's the message for our community today, that we want to be healthier, we want to be stronger, we want to take time out to care for ourselves, whichever way and however it might be, because we cannot fill from an empty cup. So back to this patient. So her issue was she was caring for an ill mom, but was always cranky, because there is such a thing as caregiver burnout. Caregiver, caretaker burnout. So she was very stressed, but we had to sit down and figure out in her day, when do I have a minute to spare? What kind of things is not going to cost me so much time? We have lots of resources, but sometimes we need to be creative with our time. And so she found that while she's sitting down in the vehicle in the doctor's office, waiting for her mom's evaluation, instead of scrolling through social media, do some deep breaths, maybe walk around, maybe fill out the journals. So creating time from no time, being creative actually helped and made a really big difference. So all that caregiving attitude where felt overly stressed and cranky with everybody, because she was able to find 5 minutes in every day. It made it worthwhile and definitely improved her health overall. So those are just a few examples. We definitely, I cannot overemphasize the importance of caring for ourselves and being creative about how we do it. Now, are there other ways that we can care for ourselves? Yes, vacation. I know that I have fall break coming up next week. My kids are out on fall break, and the tendency is for people to go out of town, but being COVID, we're being a little bit reluctant there. But we're still going to have a good time together in a safe way. But why I'm mentioning vacation is because some people don't take vacation, whether it's a staycation or a vacation out. You want to take time out for yourself. You don't want to wait till when you actually have a vacation. So the reason is because you have to constantly refill yourself. Remember the concept that I shared, that you don't want to wait till when you're burnt out. Like I was having the worst headache of my life 13 years ago. And then I broke down completely. You want to constantly refill yourself. So you don't have to wait for that big vacation in summer or the big vacation in spring break. Constantly take those breaks, because when you take those breaks, you're refilling yourself. When you're going through any situation that is hard, you refill yourself so that you always have enough in you so that you don't break down completely and it's so difficult to come up. It's just like, if you've been exercising for a while and then you stop exercising, all of you can testify to how challenging that can be. If you've been exercising for a good bit and then you're not able to exercise anymore, then when you want to start exercising, then it takes forever to get back in your A game. So that's the same concept. You want to make sure on a daily basis, you're following the SMART goals, you're pairing it up with an activity that you're already doing so that it's sustainable. And then you want to make sure it's continuous. If it's continuous, then you never fall off the wagon. Now, what are some other self-care practices that I've seen that has worked for others other than vacation? Definitely not just hanging out with families, but doing joint activities. I know in the past, before COVID, I used to do a lot of, just activities with friends in community centers, volunteering at the YMCA, which I love so dearly because of the mission to give back. It's just like WCEG, always giving back to the community. That is a form of self-care. You know why? Because it's a win-win. As you give back to your community and you see the smiles on people's faces as you give back, word of encouragement, you read to people in the library, read to little kids, provide needs. There's just a good feeling, a rewarding feeling that you have, that you feel like your life means something, your life has value. And there's nothing that you can compare to that, where you feel your self-worth by helping and putting a smile on somebody else's face. So that is a form of self-care that people don't really talk much about. So find out where you need it. At the community center, a lot of our local community centers, the YMCA, your church, or if you don't go to church, your community center. There's so many opportunities. If you just Google areas to volunteer, a ton of things will come up. So that is another form of self-care, giving back. Now, I'm not saying sign up for everything, every opportunity sign up, because no, you need a break. You need to rest. You need to be able to recuperate. And then, of course, when you're energized and you're ready, then you can go out and stretch your hands to others. And then when you know when to retract. Another form of self-care that we don't talk a lot about is this digital world. Constantly, I know businesses run on social media, but there are times when we need to give ourselves a break. I know, I said it. We need to give ourselves a break from media. We need to, and how do we do this? The best way to do this is to, again, use your SMART goals. When are you going to be online? How long are you going to be online? Which day are you going to be online? and have a designated time. Because if you don't do that, I'm guilty. Recently discovered Reels on Instagram, and I'll just stay there and scroll and scroll and scroll. And then I'll miss my massage appointment, or I'll miss my walk-in appointment with myself. So you can very easily get trapped into social media, and especially if you suffer from FOMO. FOMO is called fear of missing out. Then you would not want to you would just have time to care for yourself, and then you get burnt out and you're wondering, what happened? Why am I burnt out? So very, very important that we give ourselves self-care by paying attention to how much digital inlet, how much are we taking in? All right, so important. That should be emphasized. Another aspect of self-care that we needs to be emphasized, which we don't say much about, is sleep. Sleep, sleep, sleep. When you sleep, you are loving yourself. So important. I just cannot say it enough about how we've made it a culture or a badge of honor to say, I'm sleep deprived. Oh, I can get away with just 4 hours. What's the big deal? We don't need to sleep. I have a lot to do. That's not self-care. That is not self-care. When you sleep, you care for yourself. You for yourself for several reasons. You go into the deep sleep and you go into your dream sleep. In your deep sleep, that is where you repair. You do a lot of repair, memory repair, things that have broken down. Your metabolism is taken care of. Your growth hormone is stimulated. It helps to burn calories here and there. I'm sure you've heard where people say you burn calories in your sleep. That is particularly when you exercise and you do strength training. So you can be sleeping and burning calories. But you wouldn't be able to do that if you're not sleeping, because growth hormone is stimulated when you're sleeping. You do a lot of work while you're sleeping. So if there's any message you take away from me today, is remember that self-care involves sleeping adequately, because if you don't sleep, then you're going to be burnt out and you're going to be stressed, and all those chronic diseases will come following after. So sleep is also important, because not only do you get into your deep sleep, then you're going to do that dream place where you remember. So when the memory, all the sticky notes that your brain is putting together while you're sleeping, best between the hours of 10 and 2. So 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. So all those sticky notes that your brain is analyzing and putting together, when you go into the dream phase, which is the rapid eye movements, that's called the REM. That is where everything is not put together. That's where you do problem solving. I don't know if you've ever experienced where you go to bed and you wake up and you have a brilliant idea the next day. You're like, wow, where did that come from? That's because you've allowed your brain to connect all the dots, all the sticky notes. They've come together to help with problem solving. So self-care involves sleep. We need to sleep. Recommendation is 7 to 9 hours. I was going to say 8, but there's a range. And so I aim for 8 with the thought that, yes, I would hit 7. And it's not just about the quantity, it's also the quality of sleep. So very important. The self-care for proper sleep starts in the day. So going out for some sunshine helps your sleep pattern during the night. It really helps to build and ramp up your sleep hormone through the course of the day so that you're really sleepy and tired. So sleep is so important. Another aspect of self-care, nutrition, what we eat, so important. We got to feed ourselves. Again, remember, self-care is self-love. So nutrition, giving yourself a healthy meal, sharing gratitude for that food that you're eating, who cooked it, how does it taste? That is self-care. So self-care comes in so many ways, so many ways. We can go on and on and on, but I definitely want to hear from you. I want to hear your questions. I want to hear what self-care practices that you embark upon. I want to hear which ones that you're going to start, you're going to evoke or begin to incorporate into your life. Again, so important. I cannot overemphasize just why it's so important for us to practice self-care. There is one other aspect that I want to very quickly share before I do a quick summary, is what care itself stands for, the word care. So let's have a picture. I was hoping that I can pull that up very quickly. So care. So when we talk about our 7 daily, so we'll start with our 7 daily self-care habits. So reducing anxiety, very important that we need to get on that, because if we don't reduce anxiety, if we don't practice self-care, we're not going to be able to reduce anxiety. We need to make ourselves, our health, self-care a priority. If you don't make it a priority, it's not going to happen. You got to use the smart goals to write it down. If you don't write it down, it's not going to happen. Again, remember, make time for your wellness so that you wouldn't have to create time for sickness. All right. You have to feel energized during the day. Whenever you practice self-care, you feel energized, you feel content, you feel refilled. It's like your cup is just refilled. All right. It helps you stay in tune with your body when you practice self-care. You know when things are out of place. If you don't practice self-care, that means you're constantly moving. You never slow down to pay attention to what is hurting and what's not going on. Like I mentioned, my incident about 13 years ago when I was so busy, I didn't even realize that this headache had been going on for 4 days, and it was a blood pressure 220/120. Can you imagine if I kept going, and didn't stop to pay attention to something is out of place? So please, I beseech you today, slow down. Find out where you can take those little breaks and listen to your body. The doctor of the future is you. You're your own best advocate. So take time and listen to your own body. Pay attention to, look at yourself. What is out of place? Because if we're too busy on the go, we're not going to be able to do that. And then self-care helps us to unwind. It helps to unwind. And not only that, it helps us to appreciate our bodies. When we appreciate our bodies, then our bodies can heal when we practice self-care. So self-care, there's so much to say about self-care. Definitely welcome your questions and just to hear what you have to say and how you practice self-care. Now, the part that I was referring to is CARE. There's an acronym that I like to, and I love acronyms because it helps me to remember things. So C is definitely, just caring for yourself, as it means. And the A is affirmation, always affirmation. What kind of things do you say about yourself? When you speak ill to yourself, not good. So let's start back. CARE, the word C-A-R-E. So C is clean eating, as I mentioned. Clean eating helps, it's a form of self-care when I refer to clean eating. So on processed foods, it also means water instead of soda, a whole bunch of soda, because it doesn't help you feel right. Your body doesn't recognize it as food. And so it doesn't burn properly. It doesn't even break down properly. It causes a lot of gut issues. So C for the word care is clean eating. The A is adequate sleep, which I already spoke about and why it's important. So please make sure you're getting your 7 to 9 hours. There are definitely ways that we can get that in. Start from the day, get that sunlight on your face. Definitely block out the blue lights. Have a routine that you're consistent with. And then the R for the care is reduce stress. Okay, so how do we reduce stress? We reduce stress through using Savor. So Savor, how do I reduce stress? So using Savor. So the S will be silent meditation and prayer. The A will be the affirmation. The V will be visualization. So visualize what it is that you want. And we'll just take a few minutes here. I want you to join me as you visualize what it is you want. What do you envision? I know we're all busy. We're high achieving individuals. We're coming to builders. But what do you want for yourself as an individual? So visualize it. Take the moment to visualize it. The E of the Savor, reducing stress, is exercise. I already talked about exercise. Recommendation is 30 minutes, 5 days a week, just for health maintenance. That's what is recommended. And then R is reading. R is reading. I love the R because it speaks to enrichment. When we enrich ourselves, we learn, we're constantly learning, lifelong learners. We're constantly learning, how do I get better? What worked today? What didn't work? What can I improve on? What can't I improve? We live in a period where we're evolving. Every day we're getting better. So that is the care. So again, let me say it out again. Care, C-A-R-E. C, clean eating. You care for yourself. A, adequate sleep. Don't underestimate the sleep. It helps us prioritize ourselves. It helps us stay healthy and rejuvenated. The R is reduce stress. How do you reduce your stress? By being silent and meditating and praying. The A is affirmation. V is visualization. E is exercising. Not exercising to stress yourself, exercising to be healthy, to be strong, to rejuvenate, to get those muscles strong. They say if you don't use it, you lose it. And then the R is for reading, which you're enriching yourself, learning those techniques that will definitely help you. So yeah, so those are definitely the tips that I wanted to share today. I hope that it's been beneficial. Last few words, self-care menu. Just like when you go to a restaurant and they have a menu and you select what you want to eat there, I want you to create a menu. This is something you probably haven't done before, but I want to challenge you to do one. Create one for yourself, because I don't want everything that we've talked about today to just fall on deaf ears. I want you to implement it. The information is here available, but it's in the implementation that you become a triumphant health champion. And we're all about being healthy and stronger together, healthier community. If we're not a healthy community, we cannot help and save lives and be there for our families and how much more ourselves. So the menu that I want you to create is going to have what you're going to do using the SMART skills. All right, so what you're going to do using the SMART skills, very important. So I want you to adapt that. All right, so yes, let's see. So any questions? Do we have any questions? I can tell you what my menu looks like if you like to hear. Let me share what my menu looks like. So my menu is wake up first thing in the morning and I take deep breaths. All right. So the first thing I say, I say thank you. I thank you, Lord, for this day. Even before I pray or go in any deep prayer, I take my deep breaths. So I take a few deep breaths for 5 minutes. And then I just say, thank you, Lord, my gratitude. I'm grateful for this day. I set my intention, and then I do my stretches. So I do a stretch in bed before I even get up, before I do anything else. Sometimes I might listen to soft music. That's part of my self-care as I'm setting my intention. Again, remember that your morning routine matters. If you just hustle and bustle and run out the door, that is not self-care. So you have to arrange your schedule in such a way that you go to bed early and you wake up at the time that you know works for you, that you have enough time. And again, I've tested this. Times when I haven't practiced it is a mess. I'm a complete mess. I'm not useful at work. I'm not useful to my family. I'm snappy. So it really is worth it. I really want you to create that self-care menu. So now after I do that, and of course I get up and then I brush my teeth and then I drink water. That is my self-care menu. I drink water. I always try my best to make sure that my water is by my bedside, ready, because when I don't do that, then I forget it and I get busy and I run out and I don't drink my water and I don't feel good. So my self-care is to get my warm water with lemon in it and I put it by my bedside. So that's part of my self-care, and I drink my water. And then my day goes, I wake up my kids, get them ready, and then the rest is history. So that is my morning routine. So I want you to create one for yourself. Self-care menu. Let's say you are selling it and you're showing a pitch on, what's the name of that program? Shark Tank. So you want to sell your self-care menu. Make it look good. Make it realistic again, right? Don't write anything that you're not going to be able to attain. So you want to make sure that you have what you're able to do, right? Within reason. time frame and all of that. So do we have any questions? Anybody wants to make a contribution about what they do, how they're engaged with self-care? Okay. All right then. Well, let's keep going. So yes, last but not the least, definitely want to just recap on everything that we spoke about right now. Everything is so important. Self-care is not selfish. Self-care is not a luxury. Self-care doesn't have to be expensive. Self-care is not overindulgence. Self-care is important for you, for your health, for your overall well-being. Because if you don't practice self-care, you will practice illness, and illness is expensive. So you want to carve out time. I know it's easier said than done, but we can do it. We are capable of so much more. We can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. I'm a believer. I trust in the Lord to make a way for me. I don't want to go down blood pressure path and being on multiple blood pressures. Unfortunately, I've seen so many patients that have either lost their lives, or first time they found out that they had blood pressure was because they had blood pressure. They had a stroke, and that was my fear. I didn't want to die of a stroke. I would have died that night. I didn't have a bleed, thank God. They said if I had delayed just 1 hour, I would have, there's no telling what would have happened. It took so long to get my blood pressure down. So all of this I'm saying so that you realize the importance. You don't want to, they say when we know better, we do better. So that's the emphasis of this session tonight, is to encourage us all to do our best to practice self-care on a daily basis using the SMART goals that I referred to: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-bound. I talked about care. How do we do it? Clean eating, right? Affirmations, adequate sleep, all of those come together. And then you sit down and figure out, where do you have those little chunks of time? You want to pay attention to how much your digital social media, because that can rob you off of other things that you need to do and practice self-care. All right, so yeah, I believe there's okay. Yes, absolutely. So for me, when I was on the blood pressure medicine, I'm a family physician. You don't want to ever come off your medicines without your doctor. You always, and this was under my doctor's supervision, when my blood pressure had gotten better, I was able to get off the medicine. Always consult your doctor. And that, I mean, it was a team effort. I knew what I needed to do. The doctor sat by my bedside and he said, whatever is stressing you out, you need to unload. And I was really grateful to God that it was a period of reflection. I needed to sit back and figure out what to do. So if you're hearing what I'm talking about, and you have any chronic disease that you're managing, just give it a try. Practice self-care. Do these things that we talked about, incorporate it into your life, and then talk with your primary care provider and see what your numbers are. See if it's improving, because you're going to be your own best doctor, right? So that means that you know your body best. You know when you're stressed, you know when you're just not feeling right. But the only way you would know that and understand that is when you are checking, when you're being just there, being present, not in the past, which a lot of sometimes people stay in, or in the future where you're really anxious. So important that we do this as a team effort with your provider. All right, so this has been great. This has been a great time of conversation, great time of discussion of self-care. I'm really looking forward to hearing great things about what you've been able to incorporate. Definitely, it's the whole idea is for us to be healthier and stronger together. That's the whole idea. So yes, it's been a great time. Now, what I would like to say at this point is, I know that great things are going to come from this session that we've had, because I know that whether you're listening or you are what listening live, watching live, or in the replay, you are going to take something, at least one, even if it is one, that you're going to take it and run with it. As our time comes to a wrap here, I know that there will be something that has made meaning, or that you can reflect on and come back and share share with us what you've done, because it's from sharing with each other that we actually get better. So definitely want to thank you all for joining us this evening as we've discussed self-care. I truly hope that it's been valuable for you, as it has been for me, because it's when we have these conversations that we remember the benefit, we remember the relevance, and it keeps it top of our minds, because it's very easy to forget it and you want to take care of other people. So definitely want you to implement these action steps so that you can live at your finest. I always talk about people living at their finest, because we all deserve it and we need it, and we're certainly worth it. We're worth all that the Lord has called us to be. So I leave you with this nugget. I have this nugget, this adage that I love, inspirational quotes, but this one says, you can't fix the world with a broken hand. Does anyone agree with that? You can't fix it with a broken hand. If your hand is broken, you can't get anything done. It'll be almost impossible to work with one hand. So remember that don't wait till when your hand is broken. Always refill yourself, always replenish yourself, always make sure that you are constantly reviving. Okay? We hear a lot of time that the world needs a revival. Yes, we need personal revivers. We need that all the time for us to stay whole, to stay vibrant, and to stay healthy. All right. So I look forward to seeing you back next month. October 19th will be the date. And that month we'll actually be talking a lot more about nutrition, because we'll be celebrating Nutrition Month. And it'll be a great conversation where we dive into, there's so many diets out there, very confusing it could be, and we're trying to figure out which diet is the right one to follow. It's so confusing, I don't know what to do. And then a lot of times people just raise their hands and say, you know what, forget this, I'm just going to eat anything. I remember asking a patient that saw me last week, I said, what's your diet like? I don't have a diet, I have a seafood diet, so any food I see I eat. So we'll be talking more about nutrition, in recognition of the October month, which it refers to, where they'll be talking about just eating habits. And of course, it's breast cancer month, so we'll be spending a few words speaking about breast cancer screening and other health maintenance that we need to ensure. So that's going to be October 19 by the grace of God. So definitely look forward to seeing you all back then. Yeah, so thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate your support all to the network, and look forward to having a great session again. So don't forget to come back and let us know which of the nuggets that you've embarked upon, which one that you are going to apply. The SMART goals we have, again: S, specific; M, measurable; A, attainable; R, relevant; and T, time bound. We have to make sure that we apply all of them, and you cannot fix the world with a broken hand. And I know that we all want to fix the world. We want to make it a better place. All right, so yes, so grateful for this time. So as the WCEG network, always here to serve the community, always here to engage, always here to help and uplift. We uplift each other. We're our brother's keeper. The Bible says, love your neighbor as thyself. It doesn't say love more than yourself. So love yourself, love your neighbor. If you don't love yourself and fill your cup, you're not going to be able to fill your neighbor's cup. So once again, thank you so much for listening in, watching in, and I look forward to seeing you all back next month, October 17th, by God's grace. So until then, take care and stay blessed. Amen.